She actually said she could expel us, like we were students in her little suburban dictatorship. Karen didn't just slam the gavel, she smiled when she did it. The HOA meeting room went silent as she adjusted her pearls and announced that any non-compliant households would face community removal proceedings. That was her phrase. Community removal, as if she ran a country. Welcome to the HOA Tales, where entitlement always backfires. Smart wins, loud loses, every time. If you love sweet revenge served intelligently, you're in the right place. But before we continue, tell us where you are watching from. It makes us happy to see how far our stories travel. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to Karen. She had a slideshow, a literal slideshow titled Restoring Order. She zoomed in on houses, highlighted trash cans, circled garden gnomes like they were criminal suspects. When she reached the Johnsons' home, she paused dramatically. Repeated aesthetic violations, she announced. Mr. Johnson stood up slowly, calm, measured. Is this about my flag? He asked. Karen smirked. This is about standards. That's when the temperature changed, because what Karen didn't know, what she absolutely did not know, was that 3 residents had spent the last month quietly preparing for this exact moment. And tonight, she wasn't expelling anyone. She was walking straight into a trap. Karen leaned back in her chair like a queen surveying peasants. Effective immediately, she said, tapping her manicured nails against the table, the board will begin enforcement actions, fines, liens, and if necessary, removal. Removal. She loved that word. But across the room, Mr. Johnson didn't sit down. Neither did Mrs. Alvarez. Neither did Daniel, the quiet software engineer Karen once called that hoodie guy. Daniel cleared his throat. Madam President, he said politely, before enforcement begins, shouldn't we review the bylaws? Karen rolled her eyes. I wrote the enforcement amendments. A soft chuckle rippled from the back row. Mrs. Alvarez stepped forward holding a thick binder. Actually, you drafted amendments, she corrected sweetly. They were never ratified. Karen's smile twitched. Daniel walked to the projector. Page 47, he said calmly. Section 8.3. The screen changed. Not Karen's slideshow. The official county registry document. Time-stamped. Stamped. Recorded. The room leaned in. Daniel zoomed closer. Board members cannot unilaterally alter enforcement language without a 67% community vote. Murmurs turned into whispers. Karen's vice president shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Johnson folded his arms. And according to attendance records, he added, that vote never happened. Karen stood up so fast her chair screeched. That's a technicality. No, Mrs. Alvarez said gently. That's the law. And then Daniel clicked one more file. An email thread appeared from Karen, admitting she streamlined the process to avoid unnecessary resident interference. The silence that followed? Nuclear. And Karen had just lit the match herself. The room didn't explode. It shifted. You could feel it, that subtle transfer of power. Karen's pearls suddenly looked tight around her neck. That email is out of context, she snapped, voice rising an octave. You people are twisting. Oh, we brought context, Daniel replied, smiling for the first time. He clicked again. A spreadsheet appeared. Highlighted columns. Payment histories, fine distributions. Mrs. Alvarez spoke softly, but every word landed like a hammer. 73% of fines issued this year were directed at 5 households. All 5 families were seated on the same side of the room. Mr. Johnson didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The pattern was obvious. Selective enforcement. Targeted harassment. And Karen knew it. Her vice president slowly slid his chair away from her. I wasn't aware of this breakdown, he muttered. You signed every notice? Daniel said calmly. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Mrs. Alvarez opened the final folder. 3 weeks ago, she announced, we filed a formal complaint with the County Oversight Board. Gasps. Karen's face drained. Daniel nodded. And tonight's meeting is being live-streamed to the entire neighborhood. That's when phones went up. Neighbors weren't whispering anymore. They were recording. Karen tried to grab the projector remote. It slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. For the first time all night, she looked small, and the chant started softly from the back row. Vote, vote, vote. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Vote, someone repeated. Not angry, not chaotic, calm, confident. I've never seen power evaporate so fast. Karen looked around the room like it had betrayed her, like the neighbors she'd fined, threatened, and labeled non-compliant had broken some invisible loyalty oath. You can't do this tonight, she said, forcing a laugh. There's a process. Mrs. Alvarez smiled warmly. You're right, there is. She lifted a printed packet. Special recall session, filed 2 weeks ago, properly noticed, legally compliant. Daniel stepped aside so the projector displayed the final slide, not Karen's, the community's. A simple motion, vote to remove HOA president effective immediately. Hands began to rise, slowly at first, then confidently. Even Karen's vice president raised his. Mr. Johnson didn't smirk, he just nodded once, dignified. The count was overwhelming, unanimous. Karen stood frozen as the gavel, no longer hers, tapped once. Motion passes. The same room she once ruled with threats now felt bright, lighter, beautiful. Neighbors who barely spoke before were smiling at each other. Barriers dissolved. Not black, not white, just residents who refused to be bullied. As Karen gathered her binder, someone gently handed her the neon violation notice she'd once taped to Mr. Johnson's mailbox. Careful, he said politely. Standards matter. She walked out without another word. And outside, the playground lights flickered on. Life went on. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Share this story with your loved ones. Tell us where you're watching from. It makes us happy to see how far our stories go. Smart wins. Loud loses. Every time.